In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have the iced latte this time. I keep telling myself, ice is nice. And I think it's...
Ice, baby.
Oh, yeah. Jack Hansen.
What's going on?
Well, I'm just trying to make my decision based on today's weather. I feel like it's warm enough that we need to go iced, and so that's what it's going to be.
Good choice. I get iced all the time. But I don't drink coffee, as much anymore. You know what? I just got back from a little vacay.
Yeah.
So we'll probably be mixing in some little vacay stories from yours truly. I don't remember where this was, and it's probably a good thing because I would say the town where there's probably only one espresso stand. But I got the worst s'mores frappuccino thing I think is possible from the and honestly half of that is on me because what am I thinking? I love marshmallow.
Right.
It's my favorite confection. But what am I doing ordering a s'mores frappuccino from some podunk drive up thing in North Idaho? Anyway, it was dreadful. So
yeah, and I never like to order coffee that is supposed to taste like dessert. It's not a blizzard. It's not a s'more. So what am I expecting? It's like...
Well, kind of... I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting a blast of s'mores goodness with a coffee overtone, I guess.
Ooh, yeah.
And what I got was just... I don't know. It just wasn't good. I was thinking if it wasn't good, it was going to be cloying. But... And by the way, don't ever say cloyingly sweet. You don't have to. The word cloying means overly sweet. So I hear people say it's cloyingly sweet. It's so it's sweet and sweet? So it's really, really sweet and sweet all at the same time. Anyway, I was thinking it would be cloying, but it was just, I don't know, it was just not good.
Well, thanks for the
gas
definition.
Station, it went in the garbage. So
it went in the garbage. Well, thanks
I like to help out where I can.
Well, and I always have to carry a dictionary every time I hang out with Jack because there's always words. A new word. Yeah. You're a wordsmith.
Here's another one for you. Special dispensation.
Ooh,
dispensation
yes.
is special. Dispensation is special. You get dispensation to skirt the rules. You're the exception to the rule, so you've received dispensation. It's not special dispensation. That's double secret probation.
Yes.
It's only probation. You only need to say dispensation. You don't have to say special. So
it's redundant. We already understand.
And who has time for redundancies in this world? Life is short enough as it is.
Or dispensations, whatever you just said.
How do you feel about that, Michael, by the way? People say life's too short, and I often will just shake my head and go, in some ways, yes, and in others, it's gruelingly long.
There's some days you want to get off the merry-go-round, and there's other days you want more time. I understand.
It's just trudging, you know?
Life's too short. Well, over the weekend, by the way, how was the out-of-state cake?
That's right, the out-of-state cake. Again, I have to deliver a tepid review to the bakery. First of all, this was in Whitefish, Montana. This is probably going to be heard somebody because they only have so many bakeries up that way. But I'll throw it out there. And I'm not trying to be, pernicious or anything. I'm just giving my honest opinion. The folks were very friendly. When I called to order the cake, that story. So they were very nice. So got there just in the nick of time. They closed at 4, and I think we finally rolled into town at 3:30 and picked up the cake. And first of all, this is not their fault, but it's Whitefish, Montana. And with a name like Whitefish, Montana, and with the rep that Montana has, I would expect a lot of very Montana-esque sort of people. Lots of maybe sort of neoteric Marlboro men and women that belong with them. Like, somebody looks like they line dance a lot, or I don't know. I've been to Montana many times, driven through, stayed, gone to certain places, spent some time in some places, not as much in others. But I've been there in Big Sky plenty of times.
Not expecting a cultured culinary experience is what you're saying.
I was not expecting South Beach. Let's put it that way. We walk into this bakery to pick up this cake, and the woman in front of us absolutely she looked like she just stepped off of Madison Avenue. She plastic surgery to the nines, every single part of her body, nipped, tucked, stuck out, lifted, boob job, lip job, nose job, gold iPhone case, the solid 14 karat gold plated or whatever.
Was
iPhone
it bedazzled?
With the dazzled diamond thing. Yeah. It was the brand new phone. She's got the head to toe Gucci thing going on. I don't know what they were, like Louis Vuitton. They were designer clothes from head to toe. And she's got her kid with her, and the kid is a toddler. Well, not a toddler, maybe like 5, I guess. So young, but still, shopping in the same Neiman Marcus, So and there were a lot of people there that were like that. So I'm not sure what I was expecting, but my girlfriend and I were both just like, so as you know, Whitefish is just a few miles north of Kalispell, and they spell it Kalispel. And I was thinking, they should call this Cali, Cali spell, Spell, because they're under a California spell right now.
There you go.
Residents.
I like it.
Not what I was expecting. The cake, God forbid my girlfriend hears this, but I have to give my honest. She was happy, so that's all that mattered. I thought that the cake was anything but cloying. If cloying had an opposite, I almost wanted to go back when we went back up through that way and walk in and go, so I bought a cake here, a special order, and I just like to know who forgot the sugar, because it was just bland. It wasn't. Cake is supposed to be sweet, and frosting, as you know, is supposed to be very sweet, and neither were sweet. I was shocked. It was just kind of like, it was like the South Beach cake of the century, I guess is what it was. It was the South Beach diet cake. So I was personally a little disappointed in the cake. My girlfriend loved it. So that's all that matters. Like I said, it was her cake. It was her time. So what I think is irrelevant. But yeah, the cake, it went over really well. She was very pleased with it. They were her 2 favorite flavors all in one. And finding that was a total pain in the ass. So, but for my birthday, I'm just hoping to get something a lot sweeter.
There you go.
Because if I'm going to eat cake and actually put on the 14 pounds per slice that I'm going to have a hard time working off because I'm such a mentalist and I don't want to get up and, jump around like the song would suggest I do as much as I should, I'm going to enjoy myself. I want to taste the cloying nature of the cake. And so.
Well, good for you. I know Boise has become kind of a hot market for California exodus, and I think it happened similar. It was like around the pandemic, and so I think Montana, same thing. I know real estate in Montana has just exploded because of the influx of Silicon Valley former residents from the Bay Area, and so yeah. It's
a beautiful place. There's no question. I would not want to endure the winters. I can tell you that. So I don't know how these Cali people are doing in the winters. And driving, they must have 7,000 fatality accidents every winter between December and, February or March. If they've got that many people from those locales originally driving on their highways up there.
Yeah. What's the speed limit in Montana these days?
Well, it depends on where you go, but I believe on the interstate it's 80. Maybe there are some that are 85, but that might be reserved for Texas or whatever. Do you remember when I remember this from years ago, my first trip through Montana, the speed limit was still reasonable and prudent during daytime hours. At night, It was like 75, but during daytime hours, it was reasonable and prudent. And I would just like to, again, jeer the Montana State Legislature 35 years after making that decision. When in the hell has anyone from anywhere in the United States ever collectively served as reasonable and prudent in any way, empirically?
And
they
definitely
don't.
Not at the same time.
You got to be kidding me. You are inviting death. You may as well just put speed limit, death, because that's what's going to happen. And of course, that's the problem they had, was people were speeding egregiously because none of them were being reasonable or prudent based on the road conditions, how many cars were around, the landscape, the condition of the road. I mean, nothing. So
it's definitely not
nice
designed.
idea, Montana.
It's not designed like the Autobahn. And like you said, reasonable and prudent. No one in Montana is going to be reasonable and prudent at the same time.
Well, let's face it. The Autobahn was designed by Nazis who were trying to get from point A to point B in order to, I don't know, do some Nazi business. And then after World War II ended the way that it did, it was still filled with Nazis that were probably trying to kill themselves on the highway instead of getting taken into the tribunals. So the whole concept of let's build a road where everyone goes as fast as they want, it just doesn't work, because we have that now here on every highway. And yeah, it's just, it doesn't work for me. But speed limits there where we were ranged anywhere from, I actually felt like the speed limits were too high. And I remember that was an interesting part of the drive, was there were some mountain roads that we went on where the speed limit was 70, 2-lane highways. And I remember looking at my girlfriend and said, this shouldn't be any more than 65. And I was wondering, I was almost wishing that we could get stopped by a Montana State Patrolman so he could come up and say, do you know how slow you were going, sir? And I can say, well, I don't think that this should be that fast, and see what his reaction would have been. But,
and what's reasonable and prudent to you, right?
Well, that's just it. One of the problems with reasonable and prudent is I personally would like to think that you and I both qualify as reasonable enough and prudent enough human beings that we could actually look at a sign like I did when the sign said speed limit 70 and said, no, based on my vehicle, based on the conditions, based on just my level of comfort, I'm doing 67 tops. Now, I know that's only 3 miles an hour, but it's 3 under, not 3 over, let alone 10 over, which everybody else is going. So I would like to think that I am relatively reasonable and prudent, and probably exceedingly so based on modern American standards. But the average Joe or Jill, I don't think they even know what those words mean, let alone how to exercise that in their behavior. So
fair enough.
Reasonable and prudent. And the thing is, they're constantly pushing to raise the speed limit. Like I just saw the other day where I work, we have, I'm a content provider. It's basically a fancy way for saying I write clickbait. So I write this stuff, and then we're supposed to put these galleries in, those deals where you keep scrolling, and it's like 25 times the camera caught something it shouldn't have, and then you keep scrolling, and it's just nothing. It's nonsense. It's just like, and there's never the one picture they show you in the clickbait either.
Never.
So that stuff, we're supposed to attach it to our writings. I remember I saw one recently when I was scrolling through to attach to one of my writings where it was like 5 places in Washington State where the speed limit should be 85. 85. And I'm just thinking to myself, so what dumbass just wrote this and is pushing for 85 mile an hour speed limit? Because when you push for an 85 mile an hour speed limit, you are pushing for people to do 93 at least, because everybody knows that it's 8 over now. That's the common thread that state patrolmen, county mounties, smokies, piggly wigglies, they all, whatever you want to call them, they all look for 8 and above. At, the lowest they'll look for is 8 over, maybe 10 sometimes, because everybody's going so fast. So if you raise the speed limit to 85, everybody's doing 93. So you just raise the speed limit to 93. No one needs to be doing 93 miles an hour anywhere. It's too fast.
Yeah.
It's too fast. Cars, let's face it, the human body, it's not cars. It's the human body. The human body is only designed to end so much trauma. Even with an airbag deploying in a timely fashion, 93, I guarantee you 93 with optimal conditions, pick your scenario and put it in a laboratory. 93 will kill 93% of the time more than 75 will. Guaranteed. Yeah. It's a fact. So why there's this push to continue raising the speed limit, I don't know. But.
Well, and I also find, too, and I think I even caught myself in this situation, when you're behind the wheel, you almost feel like you're removed from reality. You're in this kind of cocoon. It's air conditioned, and it's not really loud, And so you almost kind of have this surreal experience that you're even going somewhere because you don't really have the wind in your hair and you're not really feeling the draft of how fast you're really going. And I think it does kind of contribute to people's decision making on, oh, well, I can get around this semi around this corner because, in reality, it's just like a simulation, right? And so I think there's kind of a disconnect sometimes too that people, when they're driving on the highway really fast or when they're aggressively driving, it's almost like they don't even realize that, if you were on your bike, would you be doing the same thing? Probably not.
2,500 plus pounds of alloy steel, framework. And so you feel that's often why they say road rage actually is part of the reason why road rage happens. First of all, because people are short-fused hotheads, but also because in your car you feel empowered because you have this steel carapace around you and you're shielded from things that could go wrong. And of course, that's anything but true because the faster you're going or the more belligerent you're acting
the more
towards
damage.
People who, by the way, all of which in Montana, they carry at least 2 guns in a holster somewhere. I know.
That's by law.
Oh, yeah. It's like, absolutely. They'll run you in. It's like gun police would like to see your secret weapons. If you don't have it, you get hauled in. I mean, for sure. So, yeah, the other thing that should get pointed out, because I saw plenty of this driving through all 3 states that we did, and then I see it on the roads here every day. No one's driving anyway. They're all on their phone. Everybody is on the phone. And I've had it with technology. I'm not a Luddite, and I don't want to be, but there's a reasonable and prudent stamp if I ever saw one for myself, at least. And I know the younger generation is going to say, he's just showing his age. He's just old. He doesn't get it. But, listen, technology, that new car I bought, beautiful color, got several compliments on it on the trip and everything. And I don't buy cars looking for compliments. It's a neat color and, people like it. So it's like, oh, cool. People like my car. That's nice. I'm glad it brings them like some visual joy for a few moments, even though it's my car. I've never really been into other people's cars that much because they're not mine, but whatever. But it is nice. It's a comfy ride. It's quieter than my last car by far and away. It's got this all-wheel drive, so it hugs the road. I like my new car. I don't like how all the stuff, all the bells and whistles, it has too many bells and whistles. Like right now, I'm down to, how that it used to be, you'd have to like gauge the gas gauge. That's probably why they called it a gauge, because you have to gauge it. You have to literally look and go, okay. It was a guessing game in my old Trans Am because the gauge didn't work too well. So when it dropped below a quarter of a tank, you could literally run out on the next block or you drive to Denver and back for all you know. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But now it gives you this approximate distance until you're empty. And of course, when you're empty, you're not really empty because there's a 2-gallon reserve tank now, not a 1-gallon like there used to be. So I know I'm not going to run out of gas. I got down to like 25 miles left. It reminds me every 18 seconds. It's like a nagging Jewish wife or a child that you'll see in a movie.
Feed me.
God, it drives me insane. And then all the safety stuff, like I know I'm about to pass and get a little closer than is recommended to the bumper in front of me, but I've got to do it because of just, again, the circumstances. And it beeps at me. It's like, you shouldn't be doing that. And it's just like, I'm already making the pass. So all you're doing is irritating me, which is more inclined to piss me off.
It's backseat driving. It's backseat driving.
God, on this big screen. I have a friend. She's my age, too, and she just got a new car a year ago. And so she came to look. Well, she came into town for dinner a few weeks ago, and she wanted to see my new car. First thing she gravitated to, even at 51 years old like she is, look at the size of that screen. I was like, you could rip the goddamn thing out. I'd never miss it. I hate that screen. I don't like the push screen thing anyway, because I have the gummiest, clammiest fingers you've ever seen in your life. I can wash them 1,000 times a day and leave a trail like a crab would if it was walking across it. I just gunk up the screen. I like buttons and knobs. I had an old gooseneck equalizer in one of my cars. That thing was phenomenal because it lit up and you played with the switches. And it was fun. I don't like the touchscreen stuff. And I don't like how it advertised to me the other day. because it has Sirius XM capabilities. And it let me know when I got in the car for like 3 days in a row, nonstop, Sirius XM is having a sale. And I was just like, I did not buy my car to be advertised to in the comfort and privacy of my own vehicle. You're advertising to me? You got to be kidding me. I was ready to give the damn thing back.
Well,
Seriously.
and I think if there's any, and the reason I'm playing the shameless plug $1 million idea intro is because I think if there's any automotive executives in the audience, I wonder if we're going to come to the day when the car under the hood is going to be super advanced, state of the art, but then you can actually choose your own. Like they used to do, like what would they do? Like the trim package. You can choose to be 21st century, or you can choose to be 1980s Camry.
I thought you know which one I'm taking.
You're going to.
By the way,
Camry.
I am not a lonely man, but I have been. So on this particular trip, I have a partner. So we chat. We talk quite a bit when we travel, and when we don't, then music plays, or it's pretty standard. Books on tape we haven't gotten around to, or listen to me books on tape, audio books. We listen to those too. But even when I've been single, I do just fine pontificating to myself in the car. I mean, I will ride like driver's seat soliloquy all night if I need to. I talk to myself like crazy in the car, and I don't see anything weird about it. I've always done that. My father did that. I think it's healthy, quite honestly. So I don't want AI built into the car talking to me. The car, it's always been a bigger thing for women than it has been for men. They name their cars cute little names, and they give them genders and all that sort of thing. And so, okay, but generally speaking, it's a machine. I want it to start, run, and drive and get me where I'm going as trouble-free as possible. It's like anything in life. I just want it to do what it's designed to do and give me as few headaches as possible. I don't want to get in and have an immersive experience with my car. I don't want to be best friends with my car. I don't want to talk to some AI component of my vehicle like, good afternoon, Jack. It's a fine day, isn't it? Yeah, it's a great day. Now shut the fuck up and turn off so I can just live my human life. No offense, but I'll park you next to some other cars today while I'm out at lunch or when we go to the gas station. You can talk to them. But I'm going to be an automotive. I'm going to be an automotivist, or what would you call it? An automotivist? One of those ists. I'm going to be an ist right now with my car, a carist, because I want you to shut up and leave me alone while I drive, because I don't want to talk to my car. And I sure as hell don't want it nagging me about everything. You're too close to the front person. Someone's too close to you from behind. You open the door. I was just washing it today, and this was a new one. Here's a trick from Jack Hansen when you wash your car too. You always wipe off the glass first because it spots the easiest. So whenever you wash your car, for God's sakes, first thing, take a towel. Don't ever drive it away wet. That's the stupidest thing you can do. Wipe off the glass first because it gets spots first, but don't wipe off the front windshield before you get in and turn on the car if you have to, which you usually do to engage the windshield wipers, because it literally does 3/4 of the work for you and pushes all the water to the side. So I do that today, and then I just leave the car running. Shame on me, this dinosaur guzzler, destroyer of the environment that I am. I left my car running for a few minutes while I dried it, but I just left it running when I dried the rest of it. I opened the doors to do the sills because dirt can collect in there, and I'm pretty thorough because it's a new car especially. Every time I opened the door and did the sill and then closed the door again, it beeped at me to let me know that the car was running and I had just closed the door. Every single time, all 4 doors. Reasonable and prudent, we come back to it again. I think I'm cognizant enough to know that my car is running and that the door is open and I've just closed it and I'm in close proximity still. These cars are made for people that are drunk. There should be built-in breathalyzers or built-in IQ tests that can start the car. And if you can't pass a simple, one of those solution to last week's puzzle things, the car doesn't start. You sit at home, you ride the bus because it's safer for humanity.
I have to ask, do you splurge for the auto dry feature if they do have it on like an auto car wash?
I don't go to the auto car wash. I like the old-fashioned car wash because I've had panic attacks in the old car in the auto car washes, sadly. I'm not worried about it now, but when my panic disorder was at its height, that was one of the places that I just couldn't go, was the auto car wash, because I'm trapped in the car wash.
Fair enough.
But I like the auto car wash because I like the big octopus, the big squids that come out and squeegee your car. But yeah, they have the auto dry at the one that we have here in town, the really big one. I like the auto dry.
Yeah, go for the auto dry.
The wind tunnel?
It's worth it. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the auto dry. Plus, they also kind of hand dry off the spots, the little drops that are on it at the one we have here in our town. So, but
for sure.
Yeah, I know it's funny because my old car, I didn't wash it for years. I mean, I washed it probably for the first time in 5 or 6 years when I sold it last month, just so I could sell it and it wouldn't look like. But one of the reasons that I stopped washing it, especially during the summer, well, A, because I'm cheap and I just quit washing the car and didn't want to spend the money. But also the bugs that I collided with, and make no mistake, bugs don't run into your windshield. You run into them on the course of their little bug errands. And yes, I am the guy that says a prayer for every bug that hit his windshield after a long drive. Thank you very much. It's just the way I'm wired. But I like to leave the bugs on the grill because the little birds snack on them. They're like, ooh, the buffet's here. If you'll watch them, they all look around for. So I got into that. So, yeah, I know I'm strange. But
speaking of getting into things, over the weekend, I took a deep dive into the world of Stephen Greer. Now,
yes,
this is somebody who you've brought up a few times. In fact, Jack Hansen was the reason I even, had him on my radar. And then I was, for whatever reason, I was online, and he's been showing up in my YouTube feed lately. Of course, the machines are listening to what we're talking about, and, then they populate our YouTube feeds with relevant videos. At least
yes, they've been listening to us.
I like to think that they do.
At least somebody is.
Yeah, somebody is. They always ping us when we play the music that's copywritten, but we won't go into that. So anyway, over the weekend, I watched the documentary Close Encounter of a Fifth Kind. Have you seen this documentary, Jack?
Yes, I have. I've seen all of Mr. Greer's films, and he's very proud of those works because they were all done without the interference, supposedly, of Hollywood and people who are plugged into this nefarious network that he's, hoping to educate all of us to rise up against and all of that. So, yes, I have seen that film, and I knew quite a bit about his work prior to having seen that. It took him a while to make a movie, but he kind of went down that road. And, yes, I have seen it. I mean, I guess for just cutting to the chase, yes, absolutely. And it's enjoyable. I've enjoyed all of his films. They're a really fair synopsis of his work. They encapsulate his work nicely, and his theories or his information that he brings.
Well, and the reason I wanted to bring it up to you is because I was kind of lost, because I almost felt like I was dropped in the middle of a conversation, and I didn't realize how many different films he does have, and I think only a few of them are really on the streaming service that I subscribe to, and so I wasn't able to watch all of them, and I think one of them you can pay for, but I wasn't really that into it. But I know that there's going to be some disclosure dates that are going to be coming up. I think it's late in the summer or possibly early fall. The U.S. Congress is going to have more hearings that are going to undoubtedly be televised on most of the major networks, and I'm sure people will start poking fun at it. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting about the documentary is how polarizing even the UAP phenomenon is, and how it's really almost been kind of like a cultural deal over the last 40, 50 years, that there really has kind of been a line in the sand where you're either a believer or you're a believer, and it was interesting to me to see how people kind of have been ridiculed, or I guess kind of, for lack of a better word, typecast as kind of oh, well, you're one of those UFO guys. And I really don't see myself as being a UFO guy. I'm obviously interested in the subject matter, and I think that it's a worthwhile. I've seen enough evidence on various news channels to say, okay, yeah, I know there's something out there. And I think we've discussed how the universe is undoubtedly a vast area, and there's no way that we can even comprehend the size of it, let alone whether or not it's inhabited by any other beings. But I do think it is interesting to look at it from a standpoint of, you've almost got these people, and I think I brought up to you before, it's kind of like Pluto's cave allegory. It's that perception versus reality. And he's really trying to blow the whistle on a lot of these government programs that have been going on over the past 60 years that have really not been completely to the public's, American people's advantage.
Well, there's he kind of has a multi-pronged, a set of things that he wants to bring to the world's attention. And it's not really so much the government anymore as it is. It's a dark faction of the government that seems to have fragmented off from mainstream government and is sort of self-governed. It's running itself, but because it's running itself, that's the scariest part, because there are no checks and balances in place. There's no American public but that's what happens when you start the insanity of things like Groom Lake and other military bases that are secret, where you can literally walk up to them and point at them, even though they're supposed to be secret, and say, there's the base over there. And any court in the United States will say there's no base there because they're legally obligated to. That's insanity. Okay?
Right.
That's when the notion of things being clandestine for the right reasons this is right where the words of, I believe it was either Ben Franklin or Thomas Jefferson, one of those people that was way smarter than us, it was a founding father, that said, any people who would sacrifice freedom for safety deserve neither. This is where somebody has to try at least to draw the line and say this is insane. So part of what he's doing is trying to get people to believe in I think they're his own dealings with the extraterrestrial phenomenon, with these beings that are coming into our space and have shared this space with us since the beginning of our existence here as humans, at least in this species. I don't know, again, because it is so vast and because there is so much going on, there's no way he could be the clearinghouse of information on that subject.
Right.
So I think I've always looked at it as he's relaying his own experiences and then extrapolating that to include his own philosophies on things like he believes all extraterrestrial visitors who would be technically advanced enough to be able to visit our space through consciousness technology would have to rise above the level of killing each other or have nefarious designs or aggressive designs, because it's a built-in safeguard, essentially, that they would wipe themselves out fighting over resources or something, or ideologies, before they would ever get to that point. I'm not so sure, but I would like to think that is true. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is trying to expose, again, some of this government information that hasn't come out, expose the dark secrets of, again, this portion of government, if you could call it that even, but this dark circle of people, this network that are operating in the black constantly.
The deep state.
And they're off the grid and off the radar, yeah. And they kind of run the world. He calls them petro-Nazis. And then that's the other part of it, is understanding the zero energy technologies and how we're basically 50 or 60 years behind where we should be as a species because of these people who've circumvented our opportunity to advance and grow as a civilization. So there's a lot going on there, and there's a lot to unpack. That's why he's done all of these different films. But on the note of the ET thing, I think the the big thing I would like to point out from what you mentioned, the perception, I guess, of the phenomenon has really changed because the primary question has changed now. Because it used to be that if you talked about UFOs, you wrapped that right in with the notion that there was anything out there at all. Because we lived in a very Christian society. We lived in a very Western, theologically indoctrinated society. And teachings would essentially say, no, we're the only game in town. There was no accounting for this in any of the scriptures. So this doesn't fit. And obviously it would spin religion on its ear. And so it used to be when you'd bring up the subject of either, especially UFOs, to say, well, look, it was wrapped in with that bigger question, are we alone in the universe? Well, now 80%, I believe the last figures of American population are satisfied. Absolutely. The universe is big enough, as you said, that there's got to be something else out there that's similar to us or that's sentient enough to qualify as being kind of like us, or however you want to quantify it. The big question now is, are they or have they been dropping in to our neighborhood? That's really the question that's at hand. And so the question is no longer this sort of larger arching thing with, do you believe in extraterrestrials, to say they're way out there, but there's no way they're getting here, or they don't care about us, or whatever. It's now, are they coming to our neighborhood? Are they visiting Earth? And if they are, then of course, as human beings, we have all these whys, so we want to know why. I'm not convinced there is a why, but for the sake of just checking out the universe. I mean, hey, if you had the chance to hop in, the Great Space Coaster and just go anywhere you wanted just to have a look, I think I'd be on board, and I have no nefarious purposes or otherwise in mind personally. I don't necessarily want to reach out and shake hands with who's down there. I'll leave them alone. I feel like I do about the forest creatures. I just want to have a peek into their world. So we get lost in our anthropocentrism, and I think that's one of the ways that we do, because that's always what we immediately attach is, okay, we're not alone in the universe now. Are they visiting us? If the answer is yes, why?
Yeah.
Why? Why are they here? Why are they doing? What are they doing? What do they want with me? What do they want with? And I'm not sure they want anything with us.
Yeah, aside from Stephen Greer's, I understand the man has these credentials that he likes to throw out there, and he, whatever. And so, and aside from his Disclosure Project little deal that you have to subscribe to, which always is my big red flag. I think I told you that before. I really do feel like he brings up a good point when it comes to, how is our representation as a race going to be if we're trying to shoot them out of the sky, or if now the narrative is going to shift to, well, are they a threat then? And now we need to stockpile, forget about Russia, forget about China. We need to now stockpile all of this, whatever it is, because, these are now threats from up above. And, I do think that alone is an interesting layer to this onion as well, which is our role in the universe, and whether or not, we as a human race is ready for something like that. And, I also don't like to go too far down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, yeah, the government has known about these things and they made some kind of secret pact. And so that's why, we haven't even been on the moon for the last 50 years or whatever it is. So I don't like to go down that rabbit hole too much. But when you look at how advanced our technology is in space, and we were talking about a few episodes ago how busy space has become, and a big business that space has become, with everyone from Elon Musk to Jeff Bezos has a role in space exploration now too. It's becoming a big industry. And when you look at the technology that we have, the fact that we have, as a human race, been stuck on this planet is probably kind of a good thing for the universe when you think about it. Because, I don't think we're quite ready to be cruising around, like you said, the universe, or that, the universe is even ready for us to start cruising around and poking our nose into various ecosystems or what have you.
I think we're far from ready for that. And I don't think the universe is ready for us to be doing that. And I hope that there are some kind of, as Dr. Greer likes to kind of lean towards, built-in is the plural of litmus, litmi? I don't know. Just some built-in safeguards, some built-in check and balances where basically you don't get very far out there unless you clean up your act and stop killing those of your own kind, because unless you do it to others. Real quickly, I will say in defense of Dr. Greer's work, regardless of all the swag and all the join, this club and receive our newsletter and it's $20 or the paywalls, or because look, we have been forced into that. Let's not forget that. I have no doubt that if that man's food and water and shelter and everything that is designed to keep him biologically vital and protected from the elements hadn't been leveraged to the nines hundreds of years ago to play this fucking game of Monopoly, he would not be charging for any of this. He wouldn't have to. He wouldn't want to. We all have to play that game. So in defense of whatever strategies he has as a business model with this to keep going with his projects, just the fact that he's brought this to the table is a serviceable item as far as I'm concerned, because he's given people something to think about.
Oh, for sure.
He's provided multiple new perspectives for us to ponder, for us to consider. And to me, that's doing something better than selling me a bag of chips that's a different flavor than it had on it last year when they came out with the limited edition watermelon limerita, and now they're back this year, but they've got the strawberry tomatillo, whatever the fuck it is. To me, Dr. Greer is doing better work than the folks at Frito-Lay and Kellogg's and Nabisco.
Well, if you compare it to the federal dollars that have been spent supposedly trying to dig into this topic, dollar for dollar, he's probably far more efficient than our federal government has in studying this phenomenon.
And he's also trying to give people a way to empower themselves to check out the phenomenon for themselves. Again, he is of the belief, and he has fashioned this because of personal experiences that he's had with extraterrestrials, so he claims, that all of us are able to make contact in our own way when we are ready to do so. So we don't need the government to roll out the red carpet on the friggin' White House lawn like everybody always wants them. And by the way, if aliens landed on the White House lawn, I would retch. I would be so disappointed. Like, oh my God, you picked the worst neighborhood on earth to land. Don't land there. Land someplace where you're actually going to get some kind of a flavor for at least either the best thing that we can possibly be or the worst state that we're in now. And on the former front, that might be land at the Smithsonian Institute, land at a street fair somewhere,
at a McDonald's somewhere,
culturally vibrant and varied. And where people are being joyous and laughing and experiencing each other, and or land at Taco fucking Bell, and see the dregs of society. Land, as you said, at McDonald's, at a Walmart. For me, it's land on the 50-yard line of the Super Bowl. Maybe not our worst moment, but not our best either, as far as I'm concerned. I think I do have to rush to his defense as far as that's concerned, because even what he's brought to the table to me is valuable enough to pay for in our system. And I'm not, again, I don't work for Dr. Greer. I'm not trying to make him money, certainly, but I just feel like he's got a valuable tool going on. Here's the one thing I will say that I wanted to bring this up because space is becoming a business. Mm-hmm. I don't remember I don't think it was Buzz Aldrin, but I think it was Edgar Mitchell. It was one of the Apollos from back in the day, late 60s, early 70s, when they were still doing missions to the moon, because they went to the moon theoretically more than once. And by the way, I also happen to agree with Dr. Greer that they went to the moon, and then what we saw was not quite what they saw. Because think about it, it makes sense. I mean, when you're talking about, if we're going to intertwine these phenomena, and if we're going to come to a consensus or agree that they did exist, they knew they existed, they knew they'd be waiting for them, you can't show the American public that live on ABC. You can't. So they have to go and they have to do their secret mission, and then we get to see Capricorn 1. We get to see the Nevada desert or somewhere in California on a studio set. I happen to believe that. So I don't happen to believe the moon landing was faked. I believe that we, as a species, human beings, went to the moon, but I don't think we saw what they saw. And of course, it's all secret, and nobody will probably. Maybe we will know someday, probably when it's a movie.
So you're thinking it was more staged than anything, just for the television audience.
Dr. Greer claims that we went to the moon as a people, but they were the ones that went to the moon for themselves. What we saw publicized on TV and those pictures, and that's another reason why there's so many anomalies in those lunar landing photographs. Go through them. Yeah. They're on the internet. And I know the debunkers just love to go through. It gives them something to do, if nothing else. A stack, nothing like setting out a stack of 80 or 100 lunar photographs with anomalies for a debunker to go through with a box of chocolate Hostess donuts and a couple of
that's a party
of packs
right
of
there.
Smokes or, it's got a vape pen and go through and this is just a shadow from over here. This is ridiculous. And then, that's right. So the evidence is clear that look, none of those should look like that. And if somebody else isn't running a game on us with all this disinformation and misinformation, they shouldn't look like that. Anyway, I happen to believe his theory. But my point is not so much that. It's that I think it was Edgar Mitchell, one of the astronauts, who said when they went up there, and I think they all will kind of collectively say this, but one of them was very, a little bit more rhapsodic about his approach to it. He really sort of put it in a way that conveyed that he was touched in an ineffable way. He said that when he went to the moon, and it really didn't take just getting to the moon, just to the point where they could get up there and look back down on our planet, but especially the view apparently from our satellite. Something changed inside of him. I mean, something said to him that everything just about that we are doing as a species is the wrong direction, that we're treating ourselves and each other in a way that is in blatant disregard for the miracle that this thing really is. And so, although I'm not big on making trips into space for fun and profit, if that was going to be the result for your average man, woman, and child, I say send them up in bulk. Who wouldn't want to have, because that's what we're all searching for. We're kind of desperate right now. I was thinking about that when I was just on vacation having fun. Like, we are just desperate to fill up the space that occupies this thing called time that we spend our energy within while we're here. What have we really been given to do by this system that we have? Just buying things, buying experiences, buying stuff. There is something to it. I mean, Madonna's not entirely wrong. It's a material world, and she's a material girl, right? But to what point? Because we're capable of so much more than that, and we're made of so much more than that. So I want that. I want whatever comes after that and after that and after that. I don't know about the guy next door. If you're willing to just get all this stuff and live in an ivory tower and put a fence around you, that's fine with me. I want to keep going on and search down those experiences that we haven't discovered yet because we're not allowing ourselves to, because we are too worried about getting a new car, getting a raise, or being able to pay for the rent, or being able to move to a bigger place, or being able to just eat this week, or, so I like that. I say set up the bullet train to space now if we can start getting people feeling like that. And you can put me in there too. I hate to fly just 30,000 feet above the air here on Earth, so I can't imagine going into space, but maybe that would completely change me and kick out my anxiety and say, look, you got nothing to worry about. If we crash and burn, we crash and burn. There's nothing to fear here, because it really seemed to just cleanse this man. And I want to say it was Edgar Mitchell who reported that experience, that it just,
I've heard that before too. Yeah.
It was the ultimate cosmic high colonic. I mean, he was just clean from head to toe as a being, as a spiritual being. And man, we need that. So it was kind of
an awakening for him as to our role in the universe and how really our planet is just this little dot that is floating in space. And I think that might be kind of the answer to one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. But before I ask that, I wanted to say, really what does declassification, because I think that's kind of the big thing that everybody is focusing on whether it's the Tic Tac or, people want all these answers and they want the government to tell them the truth and whatever. But what does declassification look like, really, at the end of the day? And what is it that we're hoping to achieve from declassification?
I just default to Dr. Greer's way. Who cares? Who cares? They're not in charge of this. They don't control this phenomenon. And it's one of the things that's bugged them from the beginning about it. That's the thing. I mean, there's a report, I believe, it might even be the Tic Tac thing that's so popular now, that Susan Anton pilots, by the way. I just know it. Or like an alien version of her.
And we know that it's an orange Tic Tac too, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. It may have been another report that I'm thinking of a relatively well-known UFO case, but it's one that Dr. Greer actually brings up, and there's a word in there. Perturbed is the word. This object perturbed the airmen who were following it and the radar men. And that's been the attitude of the militant establishment since the beginning of this phenomenon's intertwining with it, with its crossing its thresholds and its ridiculous borders that go straight up in the air until nobody can see anymore, and all that garbage. It bugs them that they're not able to slap the cuffs on it and control it.
Yeah.
And so I happen to love that, because I am no fan of the military. And yes, you can send me all the hate mail you want talking about how they all keep me free. We don't need to get into that right now, but just know that I'm not sitting on declassification of anything. It means nothing to me. And we've already had one person who's come along to try to tell us that listen, we don't need the government to break open the vaults and tell us all their secrets in order for us to finally be able to interact with and get to know our space brothers and sisters. We're able to do it anytime that we want to. And he's offering the tools to do it. Maybe it's one of millions of ways to do it. Maybe there are infinite ways to do it. Maybe you invent your own way to do it.
We don't know.
I don't know. I'm just saying that if we're relying on someone else, especially someone in a traditional seat of power, and by traditional I mean any government, no matter how it defines itself, its role is to control the people so they don't get out of hand and start riots and fires and wreak havoc, and it's just chaos. The idea is to keep order. And I understand that needs to be done so that we do live in a world that is civilized in human terms. But it also, again, it circumscribes our ability to know certain things. And this certainly is one of those things that was decided that this is for them, this is not for us. Why that was determined or decided, everybody debates about it, but now I feel like we've come to a point in time where we don't need them anymore. It's
I like necessary. That idea.
Go watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind again. The government is involved in that, but really the message is, it's the same message that he's giving now in so many ways. It's just that, the government maybe wasn't as nefarious as they really are, in at least these secret ways, these sort of black ops ways. I don't know what you call them. These dark, like you said, deep state. So
and I like how this conversation also brings up this idea of what the role of our government is in our lives, and it kind of circumvents the old idea of some of the things that we've experienced in our 1,000+ years of 2,000 years of existence. One of the things that I think we always look at is there's always this force that comes into our lives that tries to kill us. And so then, we create these fortresses and we create these systems of government and we create these rules of law to try and keep the other guy at bay. Well, now we're not dealing with humanity. We're potentially dealing with another species that it's fair to say, is far more advanced than we are, not only in technology, but maybe in in the level of thinking as well. And I did like how Stephen Greer brought up, you really think that these guys have been sitting back watching us, and if they couldn't destroy us, if that was the case, they probably would have done it already.
Yeah, game, set, match, as he likes to say.
Exactly.
You know what I mean, though? To me,
because in human history, we've always dealt with other humans. We've never dealt with another force that really is, shows up on the White House lawn or at the local Walmart and says, "Hey, you know what? I think you guys are doing this wrong, and I come in peace." I mean, amazing how that would turn things on its head.
Well, but who's it going to turn things on its head for the most? It's going to turn the people who depend on division and war on their heads the most, because they require that not only to feed their militant machine and with all that money and all that power, because when you're sitting on all the weapons and can blow anybody up who comes around and says, "Hey, I got a different idea, guys," boom, fuck you. We don't want to hear your ideas. So they're the ones that are going to have the biggest problem with this, because they've been, again, the ones that are perturbed by this phenomenon. Right. They don't like it. Stephen tells a story about the first time, or one of the first times, that he was approached by an officer of the military. It's supposed to be some high-ranking dude. Not that I'm into all that fruit salad they wear, because, again, it's just another stupid game. But because it doesn't have anything to do with discipline and duty and honor and courage to a universe that's immense and peaceful. And, it's just bullshit games. It's human. It's garbage. But anyway, it was about a contact experience that he'd had on a beach, and I want to say it was Pensacola, Florida. And, was supposed to have done the contact protocols and managed to bring in some friends who were sitting outside the void and said, "Hey, somebody's trying to reach us and we're interested." And so they showed up in our airspace, and, apparently the general, or whoever it was, caught wind of this, or maybe he was down there with his own family having some kind of, private military base holiday, because they do take up, by the way, they take up miles and miles of pristine Florida beach. You can't drive 20 minutes without getting to a major installation on the Gulf of Mexico anywhere. They've got so much of that beautiful beach just crawling with all their, war-making stuff. I've lived down there for a year, and it was awful. I hated it. Anyway, apparently the general, whoever this guy says, he says, "What the hell do you think you're doing? You have no right to be..." And it's just, to Stephen, it's just like, I have every right to do it. I'm a citizen of the universe, and there are no laws governing me making contact with extraterrestrial or outer terrestrial or interdimensional phenomenon. If you'd like to make a law, then I guess we might be all for that initially, because that would at least get us as far as we're acknowledging that we know these things real, that they exist. But I like the way that it is. You guys sit there and play your stupid games and your silly, build your Great Wall of China, like you're saying. The same old thing all over again. Mm-hmm. We don't want you. We're afraid of you. Go away. We don't want your peaceful ways. We don't want to hear any of your hands across the universe bullshit. We like it here because we're in charge, because we own all the rockets and bombs, red glare, and we're going to sit on them forever and sit on our power that it gives us. And come on, it's a regressive way to exist for the rest of us. So wake up. And I'm not saying everybody's ready. We were talking about this. I was talking about this with my girlfriend, because we were talking about her uncle, who has apparently been summoning these craft for years where he lives and has had some success with it. And I'm not even sure he knows about Dr. Greer or his protocol. So here's just a guy doing it because he grew up in an area where this phenomenon was happening, and he took it upon himself and has had some success.
Wait, can we get him on the podcast? Can we get him on the podcast?
Probably, but I haven't even met him yet. He's like the only member of her family I haven't met, so let me meet him.
Okay, you vet him, and then we'll invite him on the podcast.
But it goes to show you. We don't need them. So I'm not following this whole ratcheting up to disclosure and all.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what they do. Because here's the thing. I don't trust a thing that they tell me. I mean, I'll just go right to the heart of like, and I won't disclose my vaccination status to anybody related to COVID, but let me just say this. Do any of you have any reason when that whole thing happened and there was another rive in our society, the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers? Oh boy, here we go. Another reason to cast stones at each other instead of just agree to disagree. No, we can't because it's just too dangerous right now. You need to do this. The only thing I underscored was this. This is all I wanted to say in the whole narrative, me personally. Have I been placed, or is any reasonable and prudent, there we go again, person that has been paying attention or has been half awake through this experience and has lived through at least a few years of their life, been given any reason ever to trust anything that the United States government or any of its subsidiary factions would tell you? Absolutely not. We've been lied to up and down, front ways and backwards, sideways, every day. We're so used to it. So that's the only thing that I would consider the next time that they roll out anything and want me to stick it in my body or tell me not to say it or to say it or do this or, is I have no reason to trust anything you say. So how they get the chance to play Chicken Little for 70 years or more. And then when they're good and ready, roll out this whole thing and say, well, now we need you to trust us because this is the truth. I don't think so. That's not working for me.
Well, that was on our last episode. That was on our last episode. It's like you can roll out this dog and pony show all you want. You can look at all these facts and all this crap that all these conspiracy theorists want to throw out there. And at the end of the day, are you really going to believe it? Well, the answer, no. They're not going to believe it because that's what they believe is conspiracy theories. And that's what theorists like to do is they like to go down other theories. So you're totally right.
Just look at Roswell.
Yeah.
I mean, first it was a UFO. Then it was a weather balloon. Then it was a secret weather balloon. Then it was a double secret weather balloon. Then it was a really top double extra secret weather balloon in the final report or whatever.
When do we get to swamp gas? When do we get to swamp gas?
So it's like, all right, so we told you a lie the first time, but it was in your best interest. So now we're going to tell you another lie, but then later on we'll tell you that lie was to cover up the lie that was in your best interest that you may have forgotten about. So now we'll lie again. Look, anybody that's ever been like friends with or especially like married to a mendacious person, God forbid, they know this game. And you know that one lie leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. It's a sick and twisted and depraved
House of
game
Cards. Yeah.
to play with somebody mentally. And you're playing it with an entire race of people on one side of the planet, if you're westernized, that are cordoned off in this United States thing. I mean, what about other nations that have wanted to come out to their people? The South American nations, some of the European nations, some of the Southeast Asian nations, they don't have this view of that phenomenon because to them, it's an everyday thing. It's as real as anything. Go back and watch your Ancient Aliens to know that in India, these battles that took place between these races of people in their religious texts and scriptures that go back into the Bhagavad Gita and there's another one I'm not remembering it off the top of my head, but there are plenty of Hindu and maybe I misspoke in saying Buddhist, but I'm sure there's probably some in the Buddhist wing as well. But I think the Hindu texts in particular, there's the Vimanas that are flying around that are creating war and these things that's like a nuclear weapon that they talk about. It's as common as thinking that there were people walking around a few thousand years ago, 10,000 years ago in the Vedic texts. So we have to remember that we've been dulled down. Our view of the world is when is fucking In-N-Out Burger going to open in my neighborhood? That's all I care about. When is In-N-Out Burger coming? I mean, and I quite honestly I get ill. That was one of the hard times that I had even just taking a leisure trip for a few days here just recently is yes, it's fun, but then there's just there's the sad part of the awakening, which is I'm used to this, and this is supposed to make me happy, and this is supposed to keep me placated. This is supposed to keep me pacified, but I'm no longer enjoying sucking on it anymore. It's losing its luster. The problem is I don't know what to do next, and that's the hard thing with awakenings the further that you get into them, is because I am, first of all, I mean, as we know, I'm as sick of Taylor Swift as anything else. I am just as fucking grossly upset about fucking In-N-Out Burger. It's a hamburger. And it just, look, great comedian, died way too young in a beautiful car, a 20th anniversary Trans Am on the Las Vegas highway, the highway that goes to Las Vegas, making a pass at probably 120 miles an hour, high on cocaine. But Sam Kinison had a great routine about watching TV and about the things that we're willing to tolerate. And one of them was an ad for McDonald's. And he says, I'm watching TV, and the next thing you know, it's a street party. There are people singing and dancing on cars. These people are dancing on cars in the street with each other. It's a fucking hamburger. It's over a hamburger, and not even a good one. A terrible, shitty, horrible, disgusting, just red jelly ooze came out of some nuclear repository between two disgusting buns, nothing on it, over a fucking hamburger. I mean, so look, it's just, it gets to me for the sake of myself and everybody else sometimes, and I just get entirely misanthropic, and I have to check out. And that's maybe when I go away and just sort of recharge, because I'm kind of in that mode after having come back from 4 days on the road. And yeah, there are some good moments, but there's also some moments where you go and you wait in line and you see what people are doing, and then you realize you're kind of doing the same thing. You're too.
Part of the problem.
I mean, I'm not waiting in line at 4 hours for a fucking hamburger, I can tell you that. But I am waiting in line for a few things.
Well, you're part of the system, right?
Well, and I guess I'm part of the system because I've learned how to be part of the system because I'm westernized.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that I really know how to be. And I'm not about to go explore something that might challenge that enough to make me uncomfortable. And that's every single person that's a red-blooded American. We won't seek out different ways to do things because we're used to the comfort. We've been cosseted enough to the game that we're a slave to it. And Neil Chomsky comes to mind when you talk about the best way to control people is to give them the illusion that they are free. And that he is absolutely dead on correct when it comes to that philosophy. That is, in my opinion, absolutely true. We are all living under the veil that we are free. I'm free to go do things. I'm free. My model on freedom was always this, because and this comes up a lot of times around those great Independence Day, July 4th and stuff, where we celebrate this freedom. And I've always said in the last, well, not always said, but like I said, I've said in the last 6 or 7 years, I invented this. I said, look, the day that I can walk out of my front door and turn any direction and start walking and never come to a fence line that belongs to any individual person, party, government, any territory, any state, any military base, any country, any nation, sovereign or otherwise, anything like that, and just walk like a man, like a human on the terrestrial earth, on terra firma, where I was born and have lived this experience until I come to a body of water, then I'm free. And only then am I truly free when it comes to earthly terms. Anything else is bullshit. It's illusory. It's not true. I'm not free. Now, it'd be great to think that I could go outside my door, and maybe if I lived in the Yukon or Alaska, I could pull off several hundred miles. Good luck, though, because you'll probably cross somebody's fence line. In my neighborhood, I couldn't get 35 feet. And I'm guessing you're not going to either. And that's the reality most of us live in. And it's so easy to try to detune that and say, well, yeah, Jack, but you're not being realistic because, people have their property. That's the whole point. The whole point is going back to the native peoples. You can't own the fucking land. You can't own.
Are we getting back to land acknowledgements now? Or is
You're
that
getting
what we're
back
doing?
to land acknowledgement in some ways, yeah. You can't own the land. So think about that. You're not free when anytime somebody says, I have governance over this space and you don't have a right to be here unless I say so, that is not free. That is not free. So until I can pull that trick, and it's never going to happen, of course, in this lifetime, but I've resigned myself to that long ago, I'm not free. And I have to live with the fact that I'm not free. So I have to take what little smidgens of free that I'm allowed. I have to take, the crumbs of freedom that we are given. And so this is a big crumb that Dr. Greer has given us to say, I can go out under the stars on my own lawn because I pay the property. I pay the king his taxes for it. So I can at least go out on either public land or at my friend Fred's house or his ranch because he likes me and he trusts me there. With permission, or on my own space, I can go out and I can actually do these contact protocols, or I can do it my own way if you've got your own way to do this, and try to reach out. And even if nothing happens, just the idea, even if nothing palpable occurs, just the idea that you're allowed to do that you have the freedom to do that, and that your thoughts, which, by the way, these smart devices in that car of mine are trying to leap into, that's the next thing they're going to control is what I'm thinking.
Oh, this
and
comes
again,
full
they're not
circle.
even going to want to. They're not even going to want to do it for the sake of some government that wants to take over the world. They're going to do it to sell me something, because that's the government that rules the world right now. That's what governs all of us, buying stuff. That's it. It's the only game in town. So exercise the freedoms that you do have here. And remember that you are a creature of free will. I know there's people that will disagree with me. That's every right, because I don't know this for sure. Because there are some people that say the notion of free will of itself is a misnomer, that we are controlled by some fatist deity or something controls our every movement like a marionette and wants to give us that illusion that we're free. Look, I don't know if that's true or not, but I happen to believe in cosmic universal free will. And so, therefore, what I do here when I cross my neighbor's fence line, or when I do some of these other things, may be considered trespassing. In cosmic terms, when I'm reaching out and saying, hey, how you doing? I'd like to talk to you, or at least, give me a wink if you're up there, or send me a dream tonight, or I just want to be blessed with even more faith that you are there, because I love the notion that I'm not alone here and going through this. Maybe my home's even out there somewhere. I don't know.
Jack, and
exercise the freedoms that you're given.
That is a great, and I was just going to say, kids, if you haven't tuned out already, and that motivational moment brought to you by Jack Hansen. No, I think that this is why I wanted to bring this up, is because it is such a large topic and it has many facets. And I think that a lot of times we get so caught up on just that tip of the iceberg, which is they're keeping something from us and we don't know what it is.
I don't care what they're keeping from me.
Yeah, and will we ever really know? And I think the answer that we've discussed is that no, we're not going to. And we are the ones that hold the freedom of thought within our own mind.
That's correct. And that's the beautiful thing. There's that word again, perturbed. Imagine if we all got together and they came to their press conference and they set up their thing and they said, we're going to release more videos and more classified information. We'll be declassifying that. And none of us showed up. We were just like, we don't care. We don't give a fuck what you people are doing anymore, man, because we figured it out for ourselves. We got our own road, dude. Oh, you talk about perturbed? Wow. They would be imperially perturbed. They would all go in the back and start like munching on as many slices of bread with imperial margarine to see if the friggin' coronet would pop on their head like the old ads in the 80s, just to remind themselves, we're still gods. We're still control these people.
We're still in control
margarine
here.
So at least thank God there's margarine. We can still bite into margarine and be king. So as I say, stick it to those people, because that's the way you take their power away, is you just don't acknowledge them. You just say, I'm not interested in your secrets. I don't care about what you're classifying, declassifying. You guys have been playing this game for 100 years. You're going to keep playing it until we're all blue in the face. I'm not blue in the face anymore. I'm going to go breathe some clean air of my own. I'm going to go be with some like-minded people and find them and find my truth, which isn't difficult to find, because the truth of the matter is that you're here and that you belong. We talked about that. You may not fit on Earth and its dynamic, but you belong. You must. You're here. And I'm not going to be so cynical that I'm not going to say that I don't belong here. I may need to learn how to fit here a little bit better, but, that makes life interesting, doesn't it? But I don't need the government or some dark channel of it to be able to tell me how and when to fit anywhere. The hell with those people.
Well, I think we just brewed up some existence, folks. Man, if this music doesn't stick it to the man, I don't know what does, Jack Hansen.
That's why we chose it.
That's why we got it here. Well, it was fun hanging out with you until we meet again.
Forward to it.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own existence brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.